haunted house, what they don't want you to know. Some houses are just houses. Some houses hold memories, and some houses never let go of what's inside. Tonight's story is about a house that people refuse to talk about, a place where something still lingers, and a warning. If you ever find yourself near it, don't go inside. The house on Blackwood Lane. It sat at the end of a forgotten road, a massive Victorian home built over 100 years ago. It should have been beautiful. Tall spires, stained glass windows, a wraparound porch. But something about it felt wrong. Even in broad daylight, the shadows around it seemed darker. And at night, people swore they saw something moving behind the windows. No one lived there. No one had lived there in decades. And yet, lights flickered inside, doors creaked open. And sometimes late at night, if you listened closely, you could hear the sound of footsteps on the second floor. Even when the house was empty. The family that disappeared. The last family to live in the house was the Holloways, a couple and their son, Ethan. They moved in one summer, eager for a fresh start. The house had been abandoned for years, but they didn't care. They ignored the warnings. The neighbors, the real estate agent, even the town's oldest residents, all of them had the same message: leave it alone. But the Holloways didn't believe in ghosts. They should have. Because after just 3 months, they vanished. No sign of a struggle, no forced entry, no note. It was as if they had simply ceased to exist. The police found their belongings, their furniture, their half-eaten dinner still on the table. But no sign of the family. Only one thing was different: the mirrors. Every single mirror in the house had been smashed. The dare years later, a group of teenagers decided to break in. They were like most kids, bored, reckless, eager to prove they weren't scared. One of them, Kyle, recorded everything. He had a camera strapped to his chest. What they captured that night was never meant to be seen. At first, it was just a normal abandoned house, dust-covered furniture, peeling wallpaper, a staircase that groaned under their weight. But then, they heard it, a whisper, not loud, not clear, just a soft breath of sound coming from upstairs. They froze. "Did you hear that?" one of them muttered. No one wanted to admit it, but they all had. Then, the sound of a door creaking open. Slow, deliberate, coming from the master bedroom. The shadow in the corner. Kyle turned the camera toward the hallway. In the dim light, he saw it. A door, cracked open just an inch. Inside, something shifted. A dark shape in the shadows, not moving, just watching. Kyle's breath hitched. "Guys, we should go." But the others had already stepped inside. The room was cold, colder than the rest of the house. And on the far wall, a mirror, the only one left unbroken. But something was wrong. Kyle raised the camera, and his stomach dropped. Because in the mirror's reflection, there were 5 of them, but only 4 people had entered the room. The wrong reflection. Kyle's hands trembled. The extra figure stood in the corner, too tall, too thin. Its head was tilted at an unnatural angle, and its face was just a blur. One of the girls, Emily, turned around, but there was no one there. Only in the mirror. Only in the reflection. Then, the lights went out. The camera screen flickered, someone screamed, and Kyle felt fingers wrap around his wrist. They weren't alone. Kyle's body locked up, something cold was gripping him. The room felt wrong, like the walls were closing in. In the mirror, the shadow figure moved, its head twitched, and its mouth opened, wider, wider, like it was about to swallow him whole. Then, a voice, right in his ear: "You shouldn't be here." Kyle snapped. He ripped free, bolted for the door, pulling Emily with him. The others weren't far behind. They didn't stop, not until they were outside, not until they were far, far away. And when they looked back, the upstairs window was open, and something was standing there, watching, waiting, smiling. The last video Kyle never spoke about that night, neither did his friends. But weeks later, Kyle's camera was found. The footage, mostly static, mostly darkness. But at the very end, the mirror. And just before the video cut off, the reflection of the missing Holloway family, standing behind them, silent, waiting. And in the corner, the shadow, still watching, still there. The house that won't stay empty. No one stays in the house on Blackwood Lane. No one lives there. But sometimes, lights flicker in the windows. Sometimes people hear footsteps upstairs. And if you walk past at night, if you look too long, you might see something staring back. A reflection that isn't yours. A shadow in the corner, and a whisper in your ear: "You shouldn't be here." Final warning: some houses hold memories. some houses hold something worse. If you ever find yourself standing in front of an abandoned home and the air feels too cold and the mirrors seem too clean, walk away. Because once you step inside, you may never leave. That's tonight's story. If you ever experience something strange in an old house, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more terrifying stories. Until next time, sleep well. The terrifying house, the creepiest encounter ever. Some houses hold memories, some houses hold secrets, and some houses hold something that should have never been woken up. Tonight's story is about a house where something unnatural still lingers, a place where the walls seem to whisper, and a night that no one survived to tell, except for one man. This is his story. The house in the woods. It was deep in the woods, far from town. An old, crumbling house that had been abandoned for over 50 years. No one ever bought the land. No one ever tore it down. Because everyone in town knew something was still inside. For decades, there were stories, campfire tales about disappearances, strange noises, and shadows moving behind broken windows. Most people ignored them. Most people knew better than to go looking for trouble. But some people need to see the truth for themselves. That's exactly what James and his friends did, and it was the worst mistake of their lives. The dare started as a joke. James and his 3 friends, Chris, Ryan, and Derek, were bored. They had heard the legends their whole lives, and now at 22 years old, they wanted proof. One night, they made a bet. They would break into the house, stay inside for 1 hour, and if nothing happened, they'd finally be able to prove the stories were just small-town superstition. They had no idea. Something was waiting for them. The first sign. The night was too quiet. No wind, no animals, not even the sound of distant cars. Just silence. As they approached the house, the air grew heavy. It was hard to breathe, hard to think, but they laughed it off. Just nerves, right? They stepped onto the porch, and the front door swung open. No wind, no explanation, just waiting for them. They hesitated, but then Ryan, always the reckless one, grinned. Well, that's an invitation if I've ever seen one. And just like that, they walked inside. The shadow in the hallway. At first, the house was exactly what they expected. Dust-covered furniture, peeling wallpaper. The air was thick with the smell of mold and rot. James turned on his flashlight. I don't see any ghosts, he muttered. Chris laughed. Maybe they're shy. But then, Derek froze. What the hell was that? They all stopped. A sound, slow footsteps coming from upstairs. They pointed their flashlights toward the staircase. Nothing, but the sound continued, slow, deliberate, coming closer. James' hands were sweating. Maybe it's an animal, he whispered. Then they saw it, a shadow at the top of the stairs, not moving, not breathing, just standing there, watching. And then it tilted its head. The wrong reflection, Chris whispered. We need to go. But Ryan, stupid, fearless Ryan, took a step forward. He aimed his flashlight at the shadow. The moment the light hit it, it was gone. The group held their breath. Nothing moved. Nothing made a sound. Then James noticed something. A mirror on the far wall. And in the reflection, the shadow was still there, its head twitching, mouth stretching into something that wasn't a smile. James stumbled backward. That's when the mirror shattered, and the house went completely dark. The screaming room, they ran. Or at least, they tried. But the house was different now. The hallway seemed longer. The doors wouldn't open. Then a sound, low whispering, not from one voice, from dozens, all around them. The walls were breathing. Then Ryan screamed. They turned and saw him being dragged into a room by something they couldn't see. The door slammed shut. James ran to it, pounding, screaming, but it wouldn't budge. And from inside the room came the sound of Ryan screaming, until suddenly he wasn't. The escaped Derek was already running. Chris grabbed James's arm. We have to go now. James was shaking. We can't just leave him. Then the door to the room creaked open, and Ryan stepped out. But something was wrong. His face was pale, his eyes empty, and when he spoke, it wasn't his voice. You shouldn't be here. James felt something cold crawl up his spine. Chris grabbed him and they ran. Down the hall, through the kitchen, back to the front door, which was still wide open. They sprinted outside, gasping for air, and when they turned back, the house was gone. The aftermath. James never spoke to Derek or Chris again. He moved away, tried to forget, but sometimes at night, he still hears Ryan's voice, whispering through the walls, telling him he shouldn't have left, because something followed him home, the house that waits. That house is still out there, but no one can ever find it again. No roads lead to it, no maps show it. But if you're walking through the woods late at night, and you feel the air grow cold, and you hear a voice whisper your name, don't look back, because some houses never let go. Final warning. Some places hold something worse than ghosts, something that doesn't want to be forgotten. And if you ever see a house that wasn't there before, keep walking, because once you step inside, you may never leave. That's tonight's story. If you've ever experienced something strange in an abandoned place, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more terrifying stories. Until next time, sleep well. The unexplained house. You won't believe what happened. Some houses are just houses, and some are something else entirely. Tonight's story is about a house that shouldn't exist. A house that people swear was never there before, until it was. And the man who went inside and never truly left. The house that appeared overnight. It started with a missing road. Jeremy had grown up in his small town his entire life. He knew every street, every turn, every back road shortcut. So when he was driving home one night and saw a road he didn't recognize, he slowed down. The road wasn't on any map. It wasn't supposed to be there. And at the end of the road, a house. Old, Victorian style. Too big for the lot it sat on. Its windows were too dark. Its door was already open. Jeremy felt his chest tighten. Something about the house felt wrong, but something else was pulling him inside. The first step inside. Jeremy wasn't stupid. He told himself he'd just take a quick look, just see what was inside. He stepped through the front door, and the moment he crossed the threshold, the world changed. The air grew heavy. His breath came out in fog, even though it wasn't cold, and the door behind him slammed shut. He spun, but the door was gone. Just wall, like it had never been there. That's when he realized the house didn't just appear. It took him. The shifting rooms, Jeremy's heart was pounding. He wasn't afraid of old houses. But this house was alive. He turned a corner, and the hallway stretched longer than before. He walked past a mirror, and his reflection was missing. He reached for his phone, no signal. Then a noise, a soft creaking coming from upstairs. Jeremy swallowed hard. Someone else was here, or something, and it was waiting for him. The staircase that led nowhere. Jeremy had two choices: stay where he was or go upstairs. The noise was getting louder. So, against every ounce of common sense, he climbed the stairs. They groaned under his weight like something was breathing beneath them. When he reached the top, he realized something was very, very wrong. Because the stairs behind him were gone. Nothing but a solid floor, no way down, just darkness ahead, and something moving in the shadows. The woman in the hallway. Jeremy's breath caught in his throat. A figure stood at the end of the hall. Tall, motionless, facing away from him. Long, tangled hair covered her shoulders. Her arms hung limply at her sides. Then slowly, too slowly, she turned her head. But not her body. Just her head. Her neck twisting too far. Her mouth opened, and from the darkness inside, a low voice whispered, "Why did you come here?" Jeremy's stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed at him to run. But there was nowhere to go. Nowhere except deeper into the house. The room that shouldn't exist. Jeremy bolted. He ran down the hallway, ignoring the shadows twisting on the walls, ignoring the whispers calling his name. He reached a door, pushed it open, and froze. The room was wrong. It wasn't abandoned. It wasn't dusty. It looked new, familiar, like a perfect replica of his childhood bedroom. Same bed, same posters, same photo of his parents on the nightstand. He stepped inside, and his feet sank into the floor, like the house was swallowing him. Then, the door slammed shut, and the voice whispered again, "You've been here before." The truth about the house. Jeremy pressed himself against the door, heart racing. His childhood bedroom, inside a house that wasn't supposed to exist. His mind was unraveling. This wasn't real. It couldn't be real. He turned and saw the mirror. His reflection was finally there. But something was wrong. It was smiling. Jeremy wasn't. His reflection lifted a hand. Jeremy felt fingers dig into his own throat, even though nothing was touching him. His lungs burned, his vision blurred, and just as his world started to fade into blackness, the door flew open, and he was outside. The house that vanished. Jeremy gasped for air. He was standing in the street, his car right where he left it, and the house? Gone. No road, no foundation, just trees, like it had never been there, like it had never happened. Except when he looked down, the photo of his parents was still in his hands, from inside the house. Final warning. Jeremy never found that road again. No one else ever saw the house, no one believed him. But sometimes when he looks in the mirror, his reflection smiles first, and when he turns away, he swears he hears a whisper. You'll come back. What's the truth? Some places shouldn't exist. Some places pull you in and never let go. And some houses, they find you. So if you're ever driving and see a road that wasn't there before, keep driving. Because once you go inside, you may never leave. That's tonight's story. If you've ever seen a house that wasn't supposed to be there, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this chilling tale, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more terrifying stories. Until next time, sleep well.